Hello, everyone. I was not expecting to be back on this early because I was waiting for today's show, but then I popped on to X or Twitter and I saw this tweet from Dave Rubin. And I'd like to remind you guys that Dave Rubin and Candace Owens used to be best of friends. They had a joke about him making the best chicken parm. I'd like to also remind you that Dave Rubin is married to a man and has surrogate children from surrogates, which was a big controversy in the conservative world about 8 years ago, because the conservative movement was about, traditional families, nuclear families, and Dave Rubin is sort of the opposite of that. So it's very obvious that young Dave, received the payment, and it is evidenced by this tweet. He said, "I haven't said it publicly before, but it's finally worth mentioning. The last time I saw Candace at my house in 2022, all she talked about for an hour was how much she hated Charlie. I find this so difficult to believe, particularly because we have lots of audio of Charlie speaking kindly about Candace for multiple years in a row, and the same thing for Candace. They were friendly. She attended AmFest. She attended, many TPUSA events and spoke with Charlie. So I find this difficult to believe. I find this to be a paycheck sort of speech. I remember it vividly because the other two people she was ranting against that night were Ivanka and Jared, whom we had just met and had dinner with a few days before, and who couldn't have been kinder, more decent people. Yes, that is 100% true. And when she claims that this didn't happen or it's a Zionist lie, ask her if she enjoyed the chicken parm. Um, Here's what I do believe. I do believe that Candace is very candid. I do believe that she says what she thinks is on her and what's on her mind. It is very possible that she said some things about TPUSA, some things about or even sarcastically about Ivanka and Jared. You have to remember, you guys, that Candace was sucked up in the Republican, red dress, so to speak. She was in their she was in that group. She was in the in crowd at that time. So it doesn't make sense for her to speak like that. At that time, I would say that Candace was brainwashed. I think she was very much into the Republicans and Trump. And I find it completely hard to believe that she said any of this. I call total BS on Candace saying this about Charlie, 500%. 100%. 100% agree. So let's read Candace's response. This is completely and utterly made up, LOL. Sheer fiction. You guys are so positively desperate to rewrite Charlie's history that we are moving to fantasy. But since the internet is now interested, if it's cool, I'd like to now share the story about why I decided to stop being friends with you after you bizarrely opened up to me about how you hired a young Christian male who used to work on my show at PragerU. You told me his parents were overbearing Christians who were concerned about him moving to Miami to work for a gay couple. Let me pause here. You see, I've never been a fan of being like letting everybody into the movement, right? Because I think there is a level of hatred for Christianity that comes up because Christianity is opposed to the LGBTQ community and it is opposed to homosexuality. So when you start to bring people into your fold and to your fold that is inherently Christian by nature, TPUSA, like Christian conservatism, you get this. So Dave Rubin hired a young Christian male who used to work for Candace Owens and then said his parents were overbearing. You told me his parents were overbearing Christians who were concerned about him moving to Miami to work for a gay couple. Sure enough, the next time we saw you, you told us a story about you and your husband just knew that he wasn't shy, but that he was more likely secretly gay, and how you were encouraging him to experiment with guys and explore his sex life. You see, Dave Rubin, okay, he's a sicko. And I know this because in order for you to be taking the money from the country, they have to have blackmail on you, right? And that's how I know that so anybody who's reacting to Candace this way, they have blackmail on them. So I actually it makes sense, right? You and your husband knew that he wasn't shy. So what that tells me is that they were predatory. You told me And George, that you encouraged him to go on a date and then have his first kiss with a man. Shortly thereafter, he quit your show and moved for Miami. I was positively sickened by this story because I knew this kid, and yes, he was shy. And the fact that you questioned him about his virginity and dating life and encouraged him to kiss a boy makes you a groomer in my book. 500%. Dave Rubin is a groomer. And this is what people were concerned about when we started to let everybody and their mother and their twisted identities into the conservative movement. Should we get into what you told me about your night in Hawaii with Peter Thiel? Or is the above enough perversion for one morning? So here's the thing. When Candace told us that her retribution was swift, that the karma was swift, here it is. So Dave Rubin made the grave mistake that many people have made of going after someone who knows all of their deadly secrets. This is why people do not attack Candace Owens. She got on X and said, "Hey, that's fine. You want to say that I hated Charlie? Great. Let me explain how he groomed a young Christian male who was shy, encouraged him to kiss a boy because you just knew in your sick, twisted mind that he loved boys. And then on top of that, you had a night with Peter Thiel. So you guys are all in this weird orgy. Oh, sounds just like the Epstein files, 100%. And so what Dave Rubin did is Dave Rubin had this clip of Charlie Kirk making all these comments about quote unquote anti-Semites, right? And people in the comment section were flooding the comment section with this. I'd like to remind you that this is what Charlie Kirk said about Jewish donors before he died. So one thing that the conservative movement and particularly Republicans are struggling with right now is the idea that people have already seen the text. The texts are actually, we know that they're true, right? So Charlie Kirk said, Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel call. And then, of course, Andrew Colvette said, don't invite Candace. This might feel good short term, but long term, it's not good. So people in the comment section were reminding Dave Rubin that, sure, you can talk about what Charlie thought maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, but up until the last day of his life, he was concerned about being bullied by the Jews. That's who he was concerned about being bullied by. So whether or not you agree with Candace or not, you can't sit up here and say that he hated her for her opinions. Remember, he invited her to plenty of events. They were trying to get him to hate her. They were trying to get her, and you see what he says up here, I won't cancel Tucker, and I'm thinking of inviting Candace. So even up until the last year of his life, he was still in contact with Candace Owens and loved her conversations. So this is a lie. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys, and then I'm going to get off here because I got to eat lunch, is this. Dave Rubin is literally the person that initially freaked out over me tweeting genocide is always wrong. Do you guys remember when Candace Owens told us that the first step when you start to make the wrong, quote unquote, wrong move, so you start saying the wrong thing against someone else. Do you guys remember when she told us that they send your quote unquote friends? So she and Dave Rubin were friends. And she sends, she said they send your friends and their friends say, oh, are you okay? Oh, that's not something that you should be tweeting. Is everything okay? I know this is a really trying time in your life. Are you sure you're okay? This is not, are you sure that's something you want to post right now? What do you mean by that? So Dave Rubin was probably one of her former handlers, meaning he was sent to befriend her, to be congenial with her, to be welcoming to her so that he could have an ear and a voice in her life. They are all turning on Candace Owens because of this one thing. She is very, very close to Fort Huachuca. Something is not right. Something is not right. And she's getting very, very close with this because they all started flipping out between Erica Kirk asking for an expedient trial, people getting, people turning on her, Dave Rubin now, saying, oh, she's hated Charlie. She hated Charlie. This is unbelievable. Truly, shocking from him. And someone said, "Well, why are you saying this now? How come you didn't say this sooner?" And Dave Rubin's response was, "Well, I didn't want I wanted to stay above the fray or whatever." But he had been making weird comments about her you know, all month. So it was just that he got the call that said, "Hey, do whatever you need to do to get people to hate her." And the problem is it's too late. So as much as Dave Rubin wants to um, hate Candace, and as much as he wants people to hate Candace, it's not going to work. Now, the last thing I'll say is that, there's this thing that the Republicans are doing right now where with Charlie's name. They're using his name as like an emotional switch for people. So for Black people, our emotional switch from the Democrats is unarmed Black man, right? Police brutality. Those are the words that they use to sort of trigger us and get us to kind of get up, run around and start acting crazy, right? Black and brown. They have all these trigger terms that they use for us to get us to try and like get emotional. Charlie is the trigger term for the Republicans right now. And so what they're doing, anytime they want you to hate someone, they go, "She hated Charlie, sick 'em, sick 'em, sick 'em, go get after Charlie, get after Candace because she hated Charlie." And they do that with a lot of people. "You're tarnishing Charlie's legacy." That's their trigger word to send the flying monkeys to go attack Candace and her followers. Unfortunately, it's not working. And so here we are. But anyway, you guys, that's it for today's video. I will see you guys after the show today, and we'll discuss.